Hasmonean period. We think of this as being the Maccabean period, but really what I'm going to hopefully do, what I'm hoping we can really sort of look at, is I want us to back away from the story of the Maccabees, which centers Jews. And if there's any or centers Judeans, or whatever we're going to use there, and if there's any sort of meta theme that's emerging from Story of Us, I hope it's the fact that we're like this tiny little boat in the ocean thinking that we're controlling waves. Over and over again, in fact, this flow has been the ways that the Northern Kingdom and the Southern Kingdom, or empires, the Northern Empire in Iraq, Iran, Syria, Lebanon, all these regions, sometimes over Turkey, sometimes the Arabian Peninsula, the way that it is waging war against the Southern Empire. So if you remember, we started by looking at maps and the way that geography was determinative. So I want us to look at a map today as well. Just a temporary map. And let's go to Israel. Everyone here is Zoomers, you're seeing this, right? So I might make go away. Okay. So this is Israel. But if we back away, actually that's not a bad place to back to. Okay. If we look at this here, you can see why naturally you would have a separation of great powers along this boundary between Africa and Asia. We talk about the Middle East often not as Asia, but Middle East is Asia. And you can see why empire would naturally often be divided right there. So you can also see where empires arise out of, just from the geography. And again, the geography in terms of what is dry and arid and what is green and forested is different today than it was, but you can still take much of it from here. You can see that in the north, in the green areas up here, Lebanon, Syria, Turkey, Iraq, you can see that would be the region that empires would form out of. And then conquer around them, they hit these sort of natural geographic boundaries in the ancient world. And similarly, right, it's Cairo and the ways that the Nile enables civilization, in particular the incredible system of aqueducts, and I don't know the names of these things, but the way that Egyptian civilization for thousands of years was able to harness the power of the Nile for agriculture. You can see that would be another natural empire. Makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now let's keep talking geography. So let's get careful one second. We get so used to the idea of boundaries and borders as they exist today that we miss that it is a radically different concept than existed even 200 years ago. The idea of official boundaries that delineate what nation or state or government you are a part of is a construction of the modern age, particularly in terms of European nation states and so on and so forth. But as great empires are falling, right, whatever empire we're talking about, it's the border regions which begin to rebel. Right? Think of any stories you know about empire, and those are the places where rebellions begin. The first place is to secede from and push back against empire. So it's not an accident that we see this region right here, the border region between two natural geographic empires, as a place that is frequently both flopping back and forth between controls it, and as one of the main places where rebellions are coming out of against these empires, because it's right at the border. And because it's right at the border between these two great empires, it means that when there are, when Israel's alliance with Judea, or whatever we're going to use here, when it's in alliance with the Northern Empire, then there's all sorts of people from the Southern Empire willing to help the rebels and whatever that looks like, and vice versa. Okay. Does that make sense? I just want to pause there for a moment. I want to make sure that we're sort of rooted in the map. Any thoughts or questions on that? This is a dynamic that is true for the entirety of the history that we've been talking about. No one? No one? So there are some similarities. Jews are forcibly placed in the Pale of Europe. And we'll get there in a few months probably in Jewish history. But what is similar is the sense that we existed as a border between these two at that moment. For sure. Nice. Okay. Any other thoughts or questions on the sort of big global geography of the time we've been talking about? Okay, I want to look at a more localized geography because this, as everyone knows, are the borders of the state of Israel. Actually, of course, not everyone knows that, and the borders are there are no official borders of the state of Israel. The closest we get is the 1967 armistice line in terms of international recognition, and then of course there's the West Bank, Gaza. It's very complicated, and yet in our mental map, this is often what Israel looks like today. Is this land right here? But this is not the same as ancient Israel. Oh, I turned off the screen share. You all aren't looking. I'm sorry. Thank you. Let me just show it again for you here. Right, these are the borders of contemporary Israel and Palestine. But what the borders are has not ever had one official, long-standing, I should say, agreed upon boundaries. In that sense, I want us to imagine the biblical boundaries of the state of Israel as told in the Torah. So remember, the Torah is a document that as we know it comes about 400, 350 BCE, somewhere in that region, 400, 450, somewhere in there you get the Torah as a document. What you see in there with this sort of expansive vision of what Israel is, encompassing all of these boundaries, including some of the boundaries on the other side of the Jordan River, I think we should understand this of the imagined kingdom of this small little fiefdom. Because every moment that we have looked at in Jewish history so far, every moment, when we talk about the kings of Israel, they are never independent from these two great powers. We have different levels of sort of relative independence and relative sovereignty. We are always a part of one of these great powers with tension with the other great power. Think about the politics of our story of exile from Egypt 2,500 years ago, telling that story. Egypt wasn't a faraway country. Egypt was the southern great power. Think about the story of the Babylonian exile. That wasn't some faraway imagined mythological country. That was the northern great power. These stories were political in every way that they were told, because they were part of this broader geography of states. Okay, any thoughts here? We're making sense? Okay. So I want to show you a map. We're going to talk the content today is the Hasmonean dynasty. I want to show you a map of what the Hasmonean land of Israel would have looked like, or looked like at their various moments. So the Hasmoneans, let me remind us who they are. So we've been telling the story of these two groups of people. This group in the north with the stories that were proto-Exodus stories of coming from Egypt. The group in the south of Israel with the stories of coming from the great northern kingdom, the matriarchs and patriarch stories. We've looked at the way that the great power of the north, the Assyrians, drove those of the Moses stories into the south and merged these two bodies together. We looked at the way that the Babylonians came and carried off the leadership of this group into exile. And as a result of that, we get the official version of these merged stories, the Torah. We've then looked at the way that Alexander the Great comes through and replaces the Persian Empire. Well, first we looked at the way that the Persians replaced the Babylonians, and the way that the Persians sort of helped us institute a theocracy run by the high priests. But again, always as a small little sub-state of these great powers. Then we looked at Alexander the Great coming in and unifying the North and the South, the Northern Empire of Syria, Babylon, Persia, and the Southern Empire of Egypt. And then we looked at how almost immediately after Alexander the Great unified these, they fell apart. So what we are left with after they fall apart in the year, let's just place ourselves around 200 BCE right now. Starting around the year 200 BCE, 100 years before and after it is really the period we're talking about. This little area is flipping back and forth between the great northern power of the Seleucid dynasty, the Greek-controlled northern empire that had been Syria, Babylon, and Persia, and the Ptolemies, which is the Greek-controlled southern empire of Egypt. Now, Greek-controlled here means that the leadership of these countries, the nobility, the people making decisions, the people collecting tax revenue, are ethnically Greek, oftentimes with significant Greek immigration to these areas, with those people existing in the upper echelons of the ruling class of these various empires. But the empires themselves are the same. The great northern one, the great southern one. So I think it's between year 320 and 300 BCE. Jerusalem changes hands between the north, the Seleucids, and the south, the Ptolemies, 7 times. Wow. Right? 20 years, and it's changing hands 7 times between them. To just show you the massive amount of turmoil that is happening. And I'm saying this because we need to understand the Maccabees in that context. It is constant. Imagine a politics of living in Jerusalem during this time period. The only issue that would have mattered is, are you someone who is siding with the Seleucids in the north or the Ptolemies in the south? And those were the great political debates that we have during this time period. Because it just goes back and forth and back and forth. And so the equivalent of the political parties that existed at this moment, again, now we're talking the 200s or so, are all about the relationship between these two empires. So the Maccabees are waging a war against Hellenized Jews who had engaged in Hellenistic culture and assimilated Jews, or Jews who were urban. That's probably the other way to say it. It's a war between rural Jews and urban Jews, between traditionalist Jews and cosmopolitan connected with Greek Jews. And this civil war is happening all within that context of, are we aligned with the Northern Empire or the Southern Empire? Does that make sense?
Both of which were Greek.
Both of which were controlled by elite Greek ethno-folk. I'm not sure exactly what the word is. But they're at war with each other. These empires. I mean, it's not like some other Greece. They're a part of this effort to Hellenize the world. The Greek civilization should spread everywhere. By the way, just a side note that the Northern Kingdom, this isn't such a side note, the Northern Empire, the Seleucids, who the Maccabees rebel against and gain some level of temporary independence, which again, hearing temporary independence, you should just think, oh, an alliance with the South instead of the North. But they gained this temporary independence partially because the Seleucid Empire in the North has gone to war with India and is losing. And it's drawing all the troops on its other border against another empire, just to sort of bring in the global world here for a moment. Okay, thoughts, questions? Before I finally show you this map that I've been talking about showing for the last 10 minutes.
What to the south and north, all they want is to be able to move freely through this middle part?
Oh, no, this empire. It's about control and extraction of resources. Local control, it's war, it's, yeah.
And this is about boundary land.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at this map.
So
anyhow,
the Seleucid Northern Empire,
and
now we're in the
160s
160s
or so,
BCE,
has gone to war with India and is losing pretty badly. It's close to the end for this empire. So all of a sudden control is slipping on the far end of its other empire. The other end of its empire, what we would call Israel, Judea. And so that's where we start getting all of these rebellions from. That's the context of the Maccabees. That they are able to rebel out in the hinterlands, out on the borders of empire, because the empire is distracted on the other side of the known world. Okay, so the Maccabees famously win and get independence from the Seleucid Empire, and actually win a number of battles against them. And the area that they end up controlling, Zoomers, you're all seeing this, right? The area they end up controlling is just that lightest colored area in the center between Beit Zur, I don't know where that is today, or what it's called today, Jerusalem and Jericho. Those are the boundaries of the Hasmonean early dynasty. When you think of folks like Judah Maccabee, that's the empire that he ends up controlling. Okay. Then you get into the pieces that are darker red, everything but the very darkest red, and the purple, not the purple, no, the darkest red, or many of the darker reds. And those end up under the control 20 years later after Judah Maccabee. Those are the regions controlled by his little brother Simon. 20 years later. And then this is the expansion throughout the various Hasmonean dynasties. So the Hasmoneans are the people who are in power, the Maccabees, after this region rebels against the Seleucids in the north. So 300 BCE, we should be thinking it's a ping pong, back and forth, just massive destruction of civilization that would follow 7 different swaps in 20 years. You get into the 200s, and you continue to have these wars. By the way, history doesn't know these wars as having anything to do with the Jews. They're the Seleucid Ptolemaic wars. Right? Again, we're just a little boat in the middle of the storm. Acting like sort of we're the center all here. I totally lost my train of thought. I got out of the boat in the middle of the ocean here. I was getting the overview again. So 300s, then the 200s continue some of these wars between these empires. But we see, in particular, the Northern Empire failing, the Seleucids failing, and then you get into the 100s, not the zero numbers, but the 100 numbers. This is when, because the Seleucid Empire is failing, we see the rise of the Maccabees, of the Hasmoneans. And this is a period of varying levels of independence, actually. Some of these moments show more independence from empire than almost any time that we've looked at in the last 700 years we've covered or something like that. But of course, it's not permanent. And there are these civil wars that are constant. This is again my opportunity to use my favorite joke, which is that the Hasmonean dynasty is the most corrupt Jewish dynasty until the Netanyahu administration. And I say it every time, but this is a joke that because Bibi's been in power since 96 or something crazy, never really goes out of fashion here.
Those are taken.
Yeah.
Utterly taken.
Yeah. So there are so many civil wars, and there's so much infighting, and there's so much corruption amongst the Hasmoneans, the controlling power, that we actually have copies of letters sent to Rome asking Rome to intervene. And
how many years does this cover? Were the Hasmoneans in power?
So the Hasmoneans are in power from Judah Maccabees era, which is the 160s, until I want to say Rome sacks the region in 68 BCE. which is to say we're talking about the period of the Roman Republic. And that's what ends up happening, actually, is that the Seleucid Empire, the Northern Empire, the Northern Kingdom, the Northern Greek Kingdom, ends up deciding that they're going to go to war and they want to control Greece, too. They want to be a Greek kingdom, right? Not African, but sort of Pan-Asian, European, Greek kingdom. And they fail terribly. And one of the reasons that they fail, perhaps the prime reason that they fail, is that the Roman Republic intervenes. This is a turning point moment in history, because it is the rise of Rome as a regional power, soon to be the regional power. Okay, John, I see your hand. Same thing. Maccabees is it has to do with the particular person related to, and it's the political movement that exists at the moment of rebellion, and it refers to the generation. The Hasmoneans is the dynasty, it's the clan, it's the family, it's the group of them that took power and ended up being in power. Being the political power supported by at various times the Seleucids, the Ptolemies, or in rebellion against them.
What's happening with the civilian population of, I guess, Judea? Are they mostly staying in the same place and just under different leadership, or are they being pushed around too?
So certainly people are moving around as war is happening. War is always going to be displacement of people. But by and large, the civilian population are being engaged in various wars by the various empires, sometimes local armies, sometimes conscripted into the other armies. But we are really talking about a province that by this time is a distinct province. And exists as a distinct province, whomever is controlling it. And there's a strong regional, national, tribal, whatever word you would put to it, identity associated with it. That is sometimes the same as the geography, and sometimes not. So the other piece that goes along with this is that we have, Elliot, I see your hand in 1 second, is we see Jewish civilization outside of the land of Israel and outside of Persia. Because as you have, remember that in Israel during this time period, there's this real divide between those who are Greek connected and Hellenized and those who are out of power and not Greek connected, and you can't separate this from the power. You just can't. And so Hellenized Jews start spreading to the other Hellenized cities of the Middle East, most notably Alexandria in Egypt. And they are doing Jewish and living Jewish in a way that is not dependent on Jerusalem. Really, as radical as what's happening in Babylon and Persia, but many steps beyond that. Because the challenge of Hellenism is the Greeks saying that their civilization is superior. Right? That is the whole notion here. But there was actually surprising Greek sort of respect given to Jewish culture, particularly this idea of monotheism. And one of the distinct things of Jews living in these Greek cities is they would be the ones who wouldn't go to the Greek temples. They wouldn't enter. There were these boundary setting pieces, and we can see how you raise your kids that we're the only ones who don't go into those buildings. That's one of the ways that Jewish culture promulgates itself. Right? I think in some ways it's the equivalent of if you only eat kosher food, it's an incredibly strong reinforcer of your Jewishness. Because it's just sociologically speaking. Does that make sense? So we see Jewish culture outside of the land of Israel happening as well. And in fact, these Hellenized communities are so strong and so vibrant that they continue on, and most scholars believe that these eventually turn into, I forget the name, there's not Coptic, but Coptic. Maybe it is Coptic. Maybe it is. They turn into the Coptic Christians of Alexandria. Just sort of merge these sort of side groups merge. Elliot and then Ray. And then Mary. Elliot, if you're there.
Judea generally, certainly by the time the end of today is going to get, we're going to end at the moment where this would have been known as the Roman province of Judea. And in a couple of weeks we'll get to when the Romans renamed Palestine as a punishment for Jewish rebellion, or Judean rebellion, but we'll get there. Next question was Ray. Huge evidence. Actually, so this is one of the things in my research in the last few days that really stood out to me. So Greeks are doing this everywhere they go. They're building their cultural cities and institutions, and so the reaction in various communities and various places is going to be quite different, you can imagine. But it was notable to the Greeks how much the priests, and remember the priests are the political elite, politically and religious, political elite of this region, how much the high priests loved the gymnasiums and the bathhouses. Would you say, I mean, who doesn't like a spa and a schwitz and a workout, right? Like, we built JCCs. But all of which is to say that despite the ways in which Jerusalem and Athens have sort of held up as different cultures in our moment today, that there certainly were rural, anti-assimilationist Jews. But by and large, actually, there seems pretty good acceptance of Hellenism, just broadly. And actually, when we look at it, when we back away a little bit, there doesn't seem, and now we're getting into sort of as much of the local history as we can understand of regular people, there doesn't seem to be really a difference between how much we disliked or liked the Greek overlords as opposed to the Babylonians or the Persians or the Assyrians or the Egyptians, right? Like, we knew that there was going to be a big boss, and the Greeks weren't particularly worse than anyone else, and in some ways were better. Because again, who doesn't like that? It's going to work out. Marion. I don't know the full answer to that. Give me next week when we touch Rome, and I will do some work on that. That's a great question. You certainly have Jews throughout the region, but again, Jews are spreading at this moment and at all moments along with the empires that control us. In fact, I think that's sort of a truism of Jewish history. Right in the same way the Jews end up in the Iberian Peninsula following the Islamic Empire. That's really the way to understand it. Jews end up in Rome following the empires were part of it. Just as Jews in what we're talking about today end up in the great Greek cities of the Middle East once were part of these empires as well. So I'll try to get you a better answer for that, Marion. But was there another question? No. Okay. So let's keep going in our history. There is so much strife and so much disagreement and so much corruption amongst these Hasmoneans as this northern empire is disappearing and collapsing. That the other great powers are rising, right? That's where we left off, this moment of Rome rising. It's the Roman Republic, and that is the end of the Hasmonean dynasty, is when there is this invasion of this region. Again, from the Roman perspective, this is not an invasion of Israel or Judea. It is part of huge global geopolitical wars that they are waging, and this is this backwater province. Again, I'm going to show this map because I want this map to reinforce just how unimportant we were, other than sitting on the border. Right here's the equivalent to today. Let's see if I can get up to scale even. There's
What's the approximate population at the time?
There's Jerusalem. Jerusalem's there. And Jericho's over here. So yeah. So you get a sense of it here. In fact, this is even bigger than we're really talking about. And then you begin to back away from it. Again, and I know we've all seen this so many times, but you see in the scale of empire, what is important is that we're the ground they have to conquer to go toward the other group. So actually, let's go ahead and look at this here. Rome has begun its campaigns. Rome ends up coming to sort of this regional significance of the Roman Republic, as I said before, when the northern Seleucid Empire goes to war, tries to conquer Greece again, unify this whole area, the Pan-Asian area, or the Asian, European, whatever you call this region, Mediterranean. There we go. To try to unify the northern Mediterranean. And they fail. And fail dramatically. In fact, they end up having to pay enormous reparations as a part of it. They're embarrassed on the global stage, the Seleucids, the Northern Empire. And it's because Greek nobility forms an alliance with the Roman Republic. As the Roman Republic gives way to the Roman Empire, we actually see this region becomes a part of it. The last Hasmoneans become a part of the machinations of Julius Caesar trying to control the empire. Caesar's a great competitor at the moment. Was it Ptolemy? Or am I just reusing the word Ptolemy in my head? Does anyone remember? Brutus is at the end of the story. Anyhow, they make alliances with like two of the warring brothers of the these are like the great grandchildren of the Maccabees that we're talking about. And it's a part of who's going to control Rome also that ends up being sort of the political issue of the moment. Julius Caesar wins, obviously, as we know. And then we again have this moment. Now we're in the sort of 60s BCE. We have this moment where after Caesar, before Augustus, Rome's power is contracted for just a second. The power vacuum of who's going to be the emperor. And we again have sort of a burst of independence or something like independence in this region that lasts for a second. And then firmly, this is a part of the Roman Empire. It becomes the province of Judea, the state of Judea. Okay. Makes sense? Thoughts, questions? So Helene, were you about to say something? I'm sorry. So broadly we are talking the sort of areas that we looked at a moment ago in its maximalist view. But once Rome comes through, it's all Rome. All of this is Rome. And it becomes a part of this Roman province that at various times ends up including chunks of what we call Syria, Lebanon, and the other side of Jordan. But again, the boundaries are never entirely set. Because we're not living in a moment where good fences make good neighbors. Right? The relationship between states is not around officially demarcated boundaries. And if there are officially demarcated boundaries, they only last as long as until one side has more strength again. So it's really porous. Judean culture was quite distinctive by this point. And Judean peoplehood was quite distinctive by this point. In fact, I think you could say that these people were Jews at this point. That they had a culture and a civilization, including religious pieces, that was portable, that was distinct, that could be taken wherever they needed to take it throughout the empire. It certainly always connected back to Judea, the region. But Jewish identity existed by this point. And in fact, you see all sorts of debates and arguments between the Judeans and Jews living outside of Judea. Who are the real Jews? The Jews who live in North America or Israelis? Is an issue that hasn't stopped. And really begins in some profound senses during this moment. Yeah, I mean, the language is still going to be Aramaic and Greek. Those are going to be the languages that are going to be spoken. Hebrew is going to be the equivalent of what Latin was to the church for a long time. John, go ahead. Now we're coming up on zero. We're in the 60s. We're still in the negative numbers. We're in the 60s right now. We haven't quite set the stage for Roman occupation. And that's going to be our next piece. We'll see how far we get with it today. We'll certainly introduce it today. And we're going to spend a while on Roman occupation. This is a time period we're going to lean into it for a few weeks because it is a moment with such profound political, or just such profound importance for our future after that. And that is in many ways because of the ways the Christian movement comes out of this. But we're really going to look at the early Jesus movement as a manifestation of the same social forces that create the rabbinic movement, and that create many of the other movements, even the Pharisees and the Essenes and the Sadducees. These are all political responses to Roman occupation. Annette. Yeah, I'm going to see. I need to get better numbers. I know that it rebuilds itself prior to the Babylonian destruction. We're at about 100,000 people. After the Babylonian destruction, we're at about 30,000 people, and it rebuilds itself slowly. So I don't know the answer, but I'll get better numbers for next week. No, great question. Important question. Other questions? Okay. So we really focused on all the powers that control us today. The Assyrians. Hold on. Let's do one more piece. Let's talk about literature just for a second. At this moment, before we go forward. Because by this moment, by 68, we can for sure say that the Hebrew Bible, as a Torah and Nevi'im, is canonized. It has happened. The Torah and the books of prophets exist and would exist recognizable to today. Now, it's not clear when this third category as a canonized category emerges. Right? The contemporary Hebrew Bible has three parts. The acronym is Tanakh. Torah, which is the five books of Moses. Nevi'im, which are the books of prophets. And remember that this is a category of the Hebrew Bible. It's a category of sacred literature. And actually, I should say that these people have no conception of the idea of Bible. In fact, Bible, as we imagine it, is about a 200-year-old concept, but we'll get there later on. Don't get me confused with that. Instead, it's what are the official sacred documents of this people? And how is it that we know that the category of Torah and the category of the prophets are canonized by this point? Because they've been translated into Greek in the form of the Septuagint. Because once again, our process of canonization, just as it was with the Torah and Persians, happens as a result of external politics. Jews living in Hellenized regions, Jews living in Alexandria, needed to have the official sacred documents, sacred history of our people. That's how I would describe them. The official sacred history of our people is how they would have understood them. And living outside the land of Israel, they needed to know what the real books were and the not real books were. And so the translation of them into Greek is what marks really this moment of canonization of these documents. This category of prophets is not just fortune teller people. We're talking about the Deuteronomical histories, meaning the sacred history starting right after Moses gets the land, going all the way through the judges and the chieftains and the rise of the kings, and then all the wars between the north and the south, and then which is to say all the history that we've told so far, but sort of the mythological version of it, all the way through then this collection of people that we recognize as prophets. Right? We get Isaiah, who is part of the politics of North and South. We've got Jerusalem. Jeremiah, who's this big pro-Egypt force. Right? That's how we should remember Jeremiah. Is he was in favor of joining the European Union. Right? He wanted to be the African Union. He wanted to be a part of the Egyptian Empire. We have Ezekiel, who is
Yeah.
He's like, what was the guy? I'm blanking. The pushed LSD. Timothy Leary.
Right.
Think Timothy Leary when you think Ezekiel. Yeah, exactly. I actually have a cousin who was a Holocaust survivor who went to jail because he was a prison psychologist and smuggled acid to Timothy Leary in Alcatraz.
Oh, that's
Or at least that's family lore, and I'm going to stick to it even if it's not true. Okay. Back to our current moment, though. Or right? I totally lost my train of thought. Oh, we were looking at the books. And then we get these minor prophets, which means the small books of prophets that have been collected together, 12 minor prophets. Notably, if you come from a Christian context, the book of Daniel is not considered a prophetic text. It doesn't make its way into this official category, and is instead, at this moment, in the 300s, 200s, 100s, there are these all these other books that are just sort of floating out there. And these other stories that are floating out there. Some of them are being written during this time, some of them are being passed on, and sometimes they're included, sometimes they're not included. By the time we get to the Dead Sea Scrolls, we have a copy of every book that ends up in the Hebrew Bible, except anyone know what the exception is? The book of Esther. We also get a few other from history, sort of not. We haven't had copies of the Bible that have remained, but we have people describing what are the sacred texts of the Jews, and frequently Esther is not included. Song of Songs is sometimes dropped. Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, which we looked at a few weeks ago, is very often dropped. So this last category is still fluid. There are all these other texts floating around. Eventually, this is the category that becomes known as the Ketuvim, the writings. And I think you can even see in the name that we give it that it was the catch-all group. In fact, some of these folks like Josephus describe it. They say, we have the 5 books of Moses, then we have all these books of the prophets, and then there are other writings. And that's what we end up with there. Okay. Thoughts, questions? Canonization, sacred text. Nothing. We're really straightforward today. Everything's easy and Leon. You gotta unmute though. Hold on. You should get a pop up asking you too. There you go. Taxes go to Rome. I imagine there's people helping to lighten the load of those gold cards along the way, but yeah.
Service charges.
There you go. Any other questions before we keep going? Okay. So the Babylonians took our leadership off in exile and wanted to ethnically cleanse the region. Not in terms of, first of all, literally ethnically cleanse human beings from the region, but also wanted to wipe the ethnicity of Judeans out and replace it with Babylonian identity. The Persians, who replaced the Babylonians, are on local control. They go back and the Jews who had been in exile in Persia, who are close with the Persian leadership, get to control the region as long as, of course, they keep agreeing with the Persian leadership. Then we get all of these Greek moments where again we have these, I won't call them puppet kings, but we have these kings that are tools of the various Greek empires, the Northern and Southern Greek empires that we're dealing with at these moments. The Romans, on the other hand, aren't interested in ethnically cleansing the region, at least not at this point. They will. They're not interested in civilizing the region the way that the Greeks understood the project they were doing. The Romans are interested in occupying the region as a part of their empire. And their method of control is one of military occupation. And that's what we need to really internalize when it comes to the Romans, is the brutality of military occupation. So you may have heard me reference this in the past. During the Obama administration, the State Department commissioned a study on what are the factors that go into suicide bombings. Interestingly, because just like our moment today, they knew that if they looked at Israel and Palestine, it would just be a disaster. Balagan is the word in Hebrew. They specifically exempted that from the study. Didn't even look at it. Just looked everywhere else instead. And what emerges is that suicide terrorism happens when you have military occupation of a foreign power. Just seems to happen. And that is what we got to follow when it comes to the Roman period. Is this is a period of external, often brutal military control of the region. So the Romans built fortress cities. They built places like Caesarea. And what happens is the politics, the intra-Jewish politics, the intra-Judean politics are all about relationship to Rome. Right? Just as we began today by looking at the intra-Jewish politics being about the relationship between the Ptolemies, the Seleucids, the north and the south, here the Jewish politics become about Rome. Are you part of the Herodians? So when the Romans come in, they replace the Hasmoneans with the Herodians. This is where King Herod comes from, of the Christian scriptures. No, I should really, because we're looking at it this way. King Herod of the Jewish documents that come to be known as the Christian scriptures. That's where we're looking at these things. And the Romans put Herod in as a replacement to the Herodians, as a replacement for the corrupt Hasmoneans, because they can't stop fighting each other. That's what Rome cares about. They don't care about what particular group is in control between the factions of the Hasmoneans. They care that all of these civil wars on the border between these two regions stop. And they have reasonable control, so they put in the Herodians instead. King Herod, the first one, immediately tries to marry a Hasmonean princess as a way of adding legitimacy to his claim, and then goes in after that drowns all of the male heirs of the Hasmoneans. So we've got almost a Pharaoh kind of moment going on right here. So Roman. The politics of people during this moment are all about their relationship to Rome. They're the Herodians who are in power. They're the Hasmoneans who want to be the ones who are in power and in relationship with Rome. Right? In that sense, they're just competitors to the exact same throne. There are the people who reject the legitimacy of Roman power altogether. This usually manifests around the temple. Because the leadership of the temple is always going to be staffed with people who are loyal to whoever's in charge. Right? I mean, it's just sort of obvious when you start thinking of it that way. And so there's all these arguments about who the rightful priests are, but it's really code for which political movement you support. That we're talking about here. Right? It's like saying, are you a donkey or an elephant? These are code for these huge political movements that really are bigger than anything he sees here. We have groups who go off into the wilderness, believing that God is going to intervene in history. God is going to come and overthrow the Romans. And what would overthrowing the Romans mean? it means that there's going to be another empire that will replace the North and the South. This one ruled by the Judeans.
Oh, of course.
Right? The fantasy of these peoples is not the fantasy of an eschatological end of days Armageddon where there's no more humanity and then global peace afterwards or something, whatever we imagine it is. The fantasy of these people, the messianic dream, was that these empires, which always exist and always will exist, would come to be ruled by us. That's the dream. That's messianism. Right? It's the hope, the prayer that God is going to intervene in history and make that happen. So that becomes sort of the focus of the battleground, even as the divisions are much larger than that. So some of these people go out into the wilderness waiting for this Savior to come. Famously, some of them end up at the Dead Sea in a community called Qumran. We now believe that Qumran probably existed from about 150 until the year 70 or so. On the other side of 0, 150 BCE, 70 CE. When Rome comes to sack Jerusalem after the rebellions later, that will get to in coming weeks, they take out Qumran as well. But the people there, the first peoples, one of the first groups, it turns out there's a successive set of religious fanatics heading out to the retreat center in the Dead Sea. Monastery in the Dead Sea, but one of the first groups famously believes there's going to be this divine change so soon that they do not believe in marriage or sexual relationships, and they last a generation. Right? But they're replaced by other folks who end up in this same, again, like desert retreat center for religious fanatics waiting a messianic intervention. And we're going to look at Qumran in some detail coming weeks as well. And we know they're religious fanatics, amongst other things, by the fact they have an endless number of mikvahs. And imagine what a... Who's been to the Dead Sea? Okay, fresh water in ancient days at the Dead Sea is not so easy to get. So imagine the expense of having mikvahs for ritual immersion and bathing would have been at the Dead Sea. Fresh water. By the way, that's the idea. You really get the sense in a mikvah, famously mikvah has to be filled with mayim, living water. But when you're at the Dead Sea, you really get what is meant by living water. Water that can sustain life, as opposed to water that can't sustain life. Today it has...
Does it have chlorine today?
Actually it does have chlorine today, and it won't surprise anyone to know that today when we talk about mayim, living waters, when it comes to mikvahs, it's like technical rules. How is collected? How many pipes it goes through? And what's the percentage of this? But you really get the concept when you're talking about mikvahs at the Dead Sea. Water that can sustain life. And to take life-sustaining water and turn it into a ritual object rather than an object that sustains life by drinking it is one of the ways we see just the level of religious fanaticism of this particular group of people. Marilyn. It's a good and controversial question. So Josephus, and we'll talk more about Josephus next week, and probably have a little show and tell with an amazing copy of Josephus from a friend of Lisa's. But Josephus talks about a number of groups during this time period: Essenes, Pharisees, Sadducees. And Josephus is one of our few histories. Almost certainly, this is a highly incomplete list of political movements during this moment. And Essenes are, at least in Josephus' description, ascetics. And what we know of some of the Dead Sea community is that they were ascetic. There are a number of scholars who have pushed back on the assumption that existed for a long time that the Dead Sea community and the Essenes are the same. So as a technical answer, it's very possible that they are not at all connected. As a sociological matter, absolutely. what you imagine or may know about Essenes you should apply to the Dead Sea community in the broadest of senses, even if not in the particulars. Right? So you have these folks. That's one of the manifestations of
Political frustration.
political frustration. Very good. Of occupation. You have other groups who follow various rebellions. You have these charismatic leaders who pop up claiming to have been sent by God to free the people from Rome. What is the name of a charismatic leader who pops up and says that they've been sent by God to free the people from Rome? That's a Messiah. That's what a Messiah is. That's what Mashiach means. Mashiach means anointed. Right? Like anointed by God to do this political purpose. So everything you know about messianism, throw out and instead hold on to that idea. A charismatic leader who pops up to lead a rebellion against Rome, claiming to have been sent by God. And we have so many messianic movements during this time period. And it tends not to end well for any of them. Because it tends not to end well for people who say that they're leading a rebellion against Rome. That's just sort of one of those things. So John the Baptist, one of the most famous from this time period, and I'm sure I've said this in this room before, but he's not John the Baptist. He is Yoni the Mikvah man. Right? He's a religious revivalist in preparation for divine intervention to overthrow the Romans. Yoni the Mikvah man. There are still Jews as late as 300 or 400 CE who are followers of John the Baptist. It turns out that there are still some small, they are now part of either Christian denominations or like fringy Muslim denominations that still have messianic imagery around John the Baptist. Still exists. You have Honi the circle drawer. You have a little later on Rabbi Akiva. You have Bar Kokhba a little later on. You have all of these folks who pop up, and of course you have Jesus of Nazareth. So it's hard for us to understand Jesus outside of Christianity. But if we're going to really understand this period, we have to get that the Jesus movement is also a messianic political movement against Rome. It's also part of an effort to get God to intervene and overthrow this occupation. And so we have to understand, and again, we're going to do some depth on this in the coming weeks, we have to understand Jesus as fundamentally a Jewish nationalist living under Roman occupation. Right, I'm going to say that again. It's such a wildly different framing, I think, than we really understand. Jesus is a Jew born to Roman occupation, living in Roman occupation, who is a nationalist against that occupation and against empire. It's one of the ironies, I think, by the ways that the memory of Jesus becomes weaponized against Jews over the last few thousand years. Because he himself was a Judean nationalist. The only way he would have been able to conceive or conceptualize of his political moment. And he's a sociological response, this movement, the same as Honi the circle drawer and Yoni the Mikvah man, John the Baptist, and the Essenes who are going off in the middle of wherever, or the Qumran community. See Maryland, I almost did myself there. And the other group that emerges at this moment are the Pharisees, the origin of the modern rabbinic movement. Okay, I think we have set the stage for the Roman period. Taking us through the Hasmonean period. We're at 6:30, but happy whatever questions we have. Nancy and then Marion.
Okay. What is their conception of God?
It's a great question. What is their conception of God at this moment? So first of all, there's always diversity. Always diversity. God is... Well, we have monotheism by now. We have genuine, honest-to-God monotheism. Even as the God that they are imagining looks like a human and talks like a human and is just a superhuman. But it is monotheism. Now, there is a divine court that serves this supreme God. And there's all sorts of attempts, sometimes called Gnostic, sometimes not, to sort of bridge, at least not the specifics, but the ideas of the Greek pantheon with and the philosophy that emerges from it, with the sort of Jewish framework. But there is a real monotheism around Adonai, Hashem, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, that exists that is core to Jewish and Judean culture. Which isn't to say that there aren't lots of people who don't believe any of it, think it's all hooey at the time too. Right. This is one of the things I think we got to understand is that there have always been diversities of what people actually believe or don't believe. We have huge Zoroastrian influences. There are all these notions of big battles between good and evil, light and dark. If you read some of the Dead Sea Scrolls, there are scrolls that are filled with endless descriptions of what the clothing and outfits of the forces of light and forces of darkness look like. I mean, like such depth, it is mind-bogglingly boring to read these 2,200-year-old texts. Lord of the Rings fans will really like dig in. So we have these notions, we have increasing notions of messianism, we have increasing notions of bodily resurrection of the dead. That seems to be something that emerges much more solidly during this period as well. Marianne and then Elliot. So oh yeah. Yes, right. There's the famous saying of Hillel that many of us probably know, and I'm going to butcher it now. But if I am only for myself, who shall I be? If I am not for myself, who is? If not now, when? That's called a rebellion against Rome. That's political. That's like as political as it gets. Think about it again, right? Now that you put it into its context. If I am only for myself, who will be for me? If I am not for myself, who will be? If not now, when? By the way, there's a deep irony to the fact that the I haven't thought about this at this moment, but the Jewish organization, if not now, which is a sort of pro-peace. Right now, they're highly associated with the ceasefire movement. They've been around for quite a long time. It's called If Not Now, from this invocation towards war, when they're very much anti. Anyways, I had thought about it until this moment. There's an irony there. Of course, we use that phrase very differently. Elliot, and then Suzanne. So, and again, we're going to go into this, and I might invite a few pastor friends, or maybe some of the professors from Eden Seminary to come in and talk too. They're incredibly political. They're just political in terms of the things that are their localized politics. We'll talk more about this next week. But I can't help myself. The Gospel of Matthew, for instance, you should understand as being about a group that is in competition for the hearts and minds of the same people as the early rabbis and Pharisees. Those are the politics he cares about. But they're also being written at a time post-destruction of the temple, generally. I think some of them might be a little maybe Mark is earlier than that, but so they're living in an entirely different Judean political reality. Marilyn, were you just giving a thumbs up, or were you waving something? Yeah, so Mark is right before in that moment. Right on the edge. There you go.
John, one that's written last.
Oh yeah.
John is the last one.
Okay.
In the canon. Yeah.
Who is Honi the Circle?
Who is Honi the circle drawer? Another one of these great messianist figures that emerges during the time.
Why is it circle drawer?
I don't even know. I guess that was shtick. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Any other thoughts? Okay.
Rudy's.
Rudy.